What is going on, everybody? It is January 11th, 2024. Day log episode over NQ and the trade review from today on the live stream, if you were there. I hope you guys have been enjoying the live stream. Let me know in the comments what you think so far. So far, it's been really good feedback from everybody. Looking at the daily time frame, and I'm going to pop out to the weekly here in a second because we are nearing the end of the week. So every day I basically keep referring back to the weekly forecast. And I continuously do this no matter what, even if I was right or wrong. But because in general, if you want to keep referring back to your weekly forecast, you want to see what your predictions were and how things are unfolding. Is it unfolding the way you anticipated? And for me, it is. The only, I guess, thing that I didn't anticipate was Monday really being the low of the week, because I think that's already set. I don't think we're going to travel all the way back down tomorrow to set the low of the week. So today was a bit difficult in general. I think it was. Let me put it this way: there was a lot of great entries. I think that if you weren't coming into the session with an anticipation of going lower, it would have been a little bit more difficult to read. In hindsight, it was really, really clear. So don't be fooled by hindsight, as we all know. If you're looking at the daily time frame, there's this daily inversion that we've been utilizing, and I annotated yesterday. So this here, we dropped all the way down into basically the discount level of that inversion, which I wasn't anticipating. Truthfully, today that was not on the radar from last night, was CPI dropping down into here. I think I was reviewing today, and I took a trade before I even got on stream, and I was looking for higher prices, and I think being inside of that, and then the switch of the bias was a little bit difficult for me, to be honest. Being inside of the live stream and all, trying to manage everything. That's the one con or the negative to live streaming, is I'm not able to really think thoroughly through a lot of situations. Even though I'm talking about price, sometimes it's nice just to sit in silence by yourself, and when price is moving or not moving the way you anticipated, to kind of think through the situation. So do keep that in mind when I am live streaming. I mean, it's not as easy or as it's displayed, because you're trying to describe price in a certain way and teach others in real time and obviously take a trade. So what I would anticipate for tomorrow, there is a profile called TGI Friday. Thank God it's Friday, where ICT describes that the range of the weekly candle on Friday, if you've been expanding one side entirely the entire week, it will move back into the weekly range by 20 to 30%. Now, that's not always a guarantee. That's just a profile. If things are aligned, it will happen. So for me, tomorrow, I don't expect that. We'll have to see. There's core PPI numbers in the morning. But truthfully, I would like an expansion higher and keep expanding higher. And that wouldn't really align with TGI Friday profile. So looking at the daily time frame, we closed today as a doji candle, basically indecisive, but we still closed above the inversion, and I could see how we're opening and kind of respecting the premium end there. So I'm envisioning an up close candle, a higher up close candle. I can't see us dropping lower in here. I don't see the reasoning for it. Looking at a 4-hour time frame, let's refine everything. You would have the 4-hour inversion, which was the initial idea when I was going along today. You guys saw that live on stream. Today we just dropped down into a discount. We've been one-sided all week without really any run on sell stops. So to me, it's not a huge surprise, just something I wasn't anticipating. But we dropped down into basically optimal trade entry, and I'll show you on the 1-hour, the dealing range. We dropped down into this fair value gap here. So do you see how the inversion, the bodies are closing inside of it, but we wicked all the way down into that discount level. into that discount for value gap and optimal trade entry. And then since then we moved away. Looking at the 1 hour, this is what I sold short into live on stream today. I was annotating the relative equal lows in here, so those there, and then that other wick or low to the left of price, so this one here as well. Those were the two levels plus the hourly imbalance reclaimed, right? We've already dug into it multiple times, but it's still an area of inefficiency inside of a discount. So from this dealing range low all the way up to that high, we're dropping down into a discount. And look how beautifully the optimal trade entry 71% is being respected, and then trading away from that. Let's dig down into a 15-minute time frame. This would have been really, really easy shorts today, and really, I kind of kicked myself after the stream. I was reviewed it, and I should have widened my stop. I should have done a few other things that I've annotated. But there was a few things, like I said, in real time that is difficult to look at, because dollar index was not giving me the evidence that I wanted in support of a lower index future. Correlation. It's just been stagnant all week, and it made it a little bit harder to read this, and I wasn't expecting it as well. So there was a few layers to it that if I was anticipating an overall bearish day, dollar index had some clear upside, I most likely would have held the first position. If you're there live on stream, I would have held the first position and widened my stop and held it out until the sell side here. I just wasn't as confident in the position, which I was able to re-enter into the market and get the loss at least back. But looking at it in hindsight, I could have done a few things a little bit different. In here, I'll show where I went long. If you weren't there, I went long pre the open and pre the live. So, and the reasoning for that was the idea that we were just simply Judah swinging. Like for me with CPI, I was expecting just a two-stage event where you have the first kind of Judah swing manipulation, traps retail, they're looking to go off lower, and then they tear it off higher. So I was positioned down here. When we started moving higher, I pulled off partials, protect myself. I wouldn't have done anything different. So that I executed well. And I started getting evidence that we obviously didn't want to move higher. And we closed underneath this fair value gap, body closing inside of it. And that's where I stopped out, basically at my rolling stop at break even or in profit. So in here with CPI, we took out buy side liquidity, and there was a bearish SMT printed at these highs, and even these highs as well. YM made a higher high, while ES and Q failed to make the higher high. They both made lower highs. So we dropped off, and moving right into the silver bullet hour, there was a nice 5-minute fair value gap. And in real time, I was just unsure coming off of the original idea. I wasn't ready for a switch to the downside. So in here, this is a really nice setup, IOFED, and then we dropped off lower into the sell side here. Now, once we did that, if you were present on the live stream, once we displaced lower in here, I started to annotate and I started to switch the bias. It started to give me a little bit more evidence that we wanted to come into this 1 hour inefficiency and the sell side liquidity levels here. So we're back over there. Once we got that, I was looking at a 1-minute time frame, and I had a position where I entered into the first fair value gap, and I had my stop loss right above the second fair value gap here. So it was above this high. I actually exited the position a little bit early because to me, I could tell that at least my position was not on side. And in hindsight, you're going to hear me, even if you go back in the live stream, I said I should probably wait for a little bit higher premium to enter the market. and I ended up entering at that first fair value gap. And looking at the parent dealing range, my stop loss should have been widened. It should have been above this fair value gap at least, if I wanted to stick with that bearish overall bias. But looking at the SMT, looking at intermarket relationships with dollar, there just wasn't enough evidence for me to hold on to that short. So I sat through a little bit of time, and once we started to drop off lower in here, I was able to get into another position. So price started to confirm to me that I was actually correct, that price is going to seek lower prices. So I had to wait for a pattern or my model to form to at least re-enter into the market. And that was at this moment where on the 5-minute, we dropped off lower. This once was a BISI. We closed beneath it, and then we returned back up into it as an inversion. And then you have this 5-minute bearish order block. So I was stopped out here, which I was actually correct, and it's fine. I waited for a little bit more information, kind of let myself chill out for a second, because I don't want to just immediately jump right back into the market. I want to make sure that I'm actually reading it correctly, which you saw in live stream. I waited about, 20-30 minutes before I re-entered back into the market. And I could see that here we dropped off lower. We have a sell side liquidity pool resting underneath the low, and we have these 3 levels to look for, plus the hourly imbalance. So I entered in here, and then we dropped off, taking out the sell side, returning into that hourly imbalance. And then from there, we reversed completely higher. If you look at a 1-minute time frame, if you refine the 5-minute, you have this buy side imbalance. Once we close underneath it, we treat it as inversion. This is the up close candle on the 5-minute, bearish order block, and then we dropped off lower into the sell side. So I was stopped out for about 35 handles here, and then I grabbed about, I think, 55 handles. So my entry was in here, and I tagged out at this low in here. So basically about 60 handles or so, which covered the loss, right? But if I had to give myself self-criticism, is to, if I see that parent dealing range, and I even told myself to wait for it, obviously wait for it, B is to widen the stop a little bit more. Again, everything in hindsight is easy to say. Looking at everything else, I want to notate these last 2 down close candles are a mitigation block. A mitigation block is different than a breaker. A breaker would have had to make a higher high in here, right? We would have had to make a higher high, then drop down to make the lower low. A mitigation block is simply where you're making lower lows and lower highs, and it's the last down close candle or up close candle in that last series of higher highs and higher lows, or lower lows and lower highs, simply put. If you look at the 15-minute time frame as well, I think that was pretty clear order flow. Again, this is the mitigation block. You have a fair value gap here. And then these last up close candles are also a bearish order block. So there's a lot of things in confluence. And that's right where we closed on the 15-minute here. I was able to kind of see, okay, this is actually bearish. I was on side. Let me re-enter the market with the right criteria, and we're able to profit. From there, we just displaced higher throughout the lunch session and PM. It was a little sloppy in terms of the price action and the delivery of it. But once we start moving above these old SIBIs or these old imbalances, they are treated as inversion levels. So once we wick above it, come back down into it, and we slowly gravitate away from it. Not much movement, but I suspect moving into overnight and into tomorrow, price is going to want to clean up these relative equal highs up here, and even these highs that have been left. I suspect overnight, and moving into the AM session, that we're going to really want to gravitate towards that. If we don't want to do that, then I'll just have to come back to price and see where we're at. But that's really what I'm leaning towards moving into tomorrow. Dollar index, it's just been a mess all week, which you have to remember we're still in January, which typically it's really not that clean a price action. It's just kind of a rare instance where index futures are moving a whole ton. So it's nice to see, but for me, when you're looking at dollar index or even your forex pairs, this is pretty typical where it's not moving a whole bunch. It's the beginning of the year. You can see we've just been moving sideways all week on the daily time frame. I would still like to see lower prices. That would be really, really nice to see. And today we took out buy side liquidity. So all these highs are resting there. We took out the buy side. This is a rejection block here, or at least the wick. Extend that out in time, because there really isn't much to work off of besides a turtle soup, really. And then we displace lower. Sell side liquidity resting underneath that low there, and then these lows here. So if dollar can drop off lower, then that would support the idea of index futures moving higher. And that'd be really nice to see to close out the week. So tomorrow I'll be live streaming probably about 10 minutes or 15 minutes before the open. And until tomorrow, good luck and good trading, everybody. Be safe.